As I already mentioned, joining us from Belgrade, Serbia is Aleksandar Crnogorac with his project Trans-Balkan. Hello, Aleksandar. Do you want me to share the screen and the PDF, or do you have it prepared yourself?
Hello to everyone. You can share it, please. That would be
Okay.
easier. So maybe I can start by introducing myself. As Duja said, my name is Aleksandar Crnogorac. I live in Belgrade, Serbia. I'm a documentary project. I'm a documentary photographer, and I'm going to be sharing with you a project I did a couple of years ago, which is called Trans-Balkan. Trans-Balkan was initially a traveling exhibition, and then it was turned into a book, which is what you are looking at. My main goal was to try and show the public, to let the public know more about the trans community in the Balkans. I started this project in 2019, which is now some 7 years ago. So I think nowadays there's not enough information about the trans community. Certainly 7 years ago, there was even less information. So what I did is I initially traveled to all the regions of ex-Yugoslavia, and the idea was to meet trans people and to capture them through portrait and short stories. Um, I think maybe a good idea is to have a look as I'm speaking to look at the images, and then afterwards I have chosen a couple of people I will talk about more precisely. So if there's any questions along the way, please go ahead and stop me. So as I said, I initially concentrated on the region of ex-Yugoslavia, and the first exhibition had 34 people in it. As the project started to travel around the region, I've realized that maybe it would be a good idea to try to include all of the Balkans. So ex-Yugoslavia plus Albania, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, and I've also included Turkey. Even though Turkey is not geographically the Balkans, I found it very interesting. Um, so obviously, my approach was to present these people for who they are. Um, I found it very useful to talk about other aspects of their life and to concentrate on the fact they're trans the least. There is uh, there is obviously an effort to try and bring the wider public to understand the trans community better. And I thought this would be best done through this personal narrative. I deeply believe that if you don't know anything about something, it's much easier to not accept that somebody or to hate them so this personal narrative was an effective way to try and bridge this gap between the wider public and the trans community. Um, Initially, it was pretty hard to get people's confidence and trust. Uh, thank God, the more I worked on the project, it's quite a small community, and thanks to the internet, a lot of them know each other, so it did get easier the more involved I was in the project. I think the exhibition was in Zagreb, um, maybe in 2020, and I'm really happy to say that actually people from Zagreb Pride have called us to come back this year. I think Zagreb Pride this year is concentrating on trans rights, so the exhibition will be once again in Zagreb at the Museum of Zagreb, if I'm not wrong. Um, so basically, what I found important was to show the wide palette of the trans community. I myself didn't really know much about trans people. I had some trans friends. That's how I got involved in this story. But I knew that it was important to depict the wider trans community. So not to concentrate only on sex workers, certainly not to judge sex work either, but to show a wide palette of all ages, all social backgrounds, geographical locations. I also was not too concerned about trying to deduct or to conclude, where trans people live better, where they live worse. I think this came naturally through the testimonies of these people. As you can tell, each person had one portrait. The text is in Serbian and English. And then this longer paragraph is basically something I wrote based on the conversation I had with these people. It's mostly biographical, where the people are from, what they do, how they live. And then the shorter paragraph below is a personal quote. I myself come from the wider LGBT family, but I'm not trans. So I found it very important to give these people the right to communicate directly with the wider public. So yeah, some of the testimonies are very personal. Some people, it really is case to case. Some people shared really intimate details about their life and struggles. Some were more reserved. Of course, I respected that. And in total, at the end, the project contains, I believe, 103 individuals from the 12 countries. So starting from Slovenia all the way to Turkey. What else can I tell you? Is there any questions right now? Do you? You're good?
No, I don't have any questions,
Okay,
but
good. So what I think maybe could be interesting to tell you is also, I didn't, depending on who I was working with and where I was, it really varied. It was always different how much time I had with the person, how willing they were to share their life with me, if we even spoke the same language. So with some people, I had, plenty of time. Some of them I even photographed in my studio, in my house in Belgrade. With others, it was just a quick meeting on the street. So there isn't a uniformity between all the pictures, as you can tell. Most of them are outside. Some are at the person's home. Some are in my studio. But what I did not know, and that's probably a good thing, at the time when I started, is that it's not easy to represent a community that's not your own. And a trans friend of mine explained to me halfway through the project that trans people are really hard to photograph because a lot of them, when I met them, were just entering their transition. And they don't feel comfortable, with the way they look. A lot of them, unfortunately, have body dysmorphia. So all of this, I'm saying to illustrate that it was a very delicate collaboration. It was very important for me to depict everybody, to show everyone the way that they would like to be shown. So obviously, it was a close collaboration. Some people came with elaborate outfits. Others just came as they were. But it was very important for me to have a dialogue, have a collaboration. I would always photograph one person in a couple of different surroundings, and then in the end, when I came home, I would send the pictures. We would choose together what they feel the most comfortable with and what they felt represented them most accurately. But yes, styling, I think, as you can tell through, as it is with any other group of people, some people care more about style, some people care less. I think what's crucial for a lot of them, especially if they're just entering the transition, is that clothes, in fact, do offer them to get closer to their gender identity. So in this respect, I think clothes and styling is a huge part of their life because before they can transition, they also, I'm not sure how familiar the group is with what trans people go through in the Balkans, but the way it works here is that you have to live as your desired gender for a year before you can even start taking hormones. of course, as you can tell through the pictures, some of these people don't have the luxury of living their gender identity 24/7. For some of them, it's just a thing they practice at home. For a lot of the sex workers, it's something they do at night. But as I said before, there's a wide range of experiences in this project, and that's what my aim was. Um, maybe we can. Sorry, I think now we're going to finish pretty soon, and then
Okay.
maybe
Do you want to go through these examples that you have selected? And maybe you can tell us how exactly did you select them
yeah,
and why?
sure. I think what you guys are doing is, you're focusing obviously on, yeah, maybe we can start with Natasha. Um, Natasha's story is she's from Belgrade. Um, she had just decided to transition, so she still had no access to any medical help or hormones. But as part of her therapy, she had to live as a woman before she could start the hormones. So what Natasha explained to me, she had quite an eclectic style, as you can tell in the picture. And she explained to me that she, living in Belgrade, and I don't remember what job she did, but she had to be out and about in the city a lot, and she found it very useful to sort of be over the top, dressed as she is, because then people would concentrate more on her clothes and less on her gender. So I think for Natasha, for example, at this point in her life, clothes were sort of a cover, uh, something that made her feel happy to appear in public as a woman, but also a sort of an armor to protect her. If she had this sort of a hat and a very colorful shirt, and she said that people noticed her less, or they noticed she was trans less if she was dressed in this way, as opposed to, for example, just wearing a regular pair of jeans and a t-shirt. So I think she used clothes to really affirm her gender identity at this early stage of her transition. Another example could be, let's see who we have next. Obviously, this is maybe not politically correct, but it's not incorrect to say. But through the many testimonies and people I spoke to, trans men always told me they felt lucky because once you start hormones, as soon as you get a bit of a beard, you can pass, and people don't really notice you and they don't question your gender. I think for trans women, it's much more difficult. Okay, let's go to Elena. Elena is she is from Sarajevo. I think at the time, yeah, she was in her 60s. She used to be an electrician. She's married. She's still married to a woman. She has a grown-up son. Uh, and she said she never really even knew what trans was. She had all sorts of feelings throughout her life, but as it goes, she was busy making a family. She was busy surviving war, economic difficulties. So basically, only in her late 50s, she really started questioning herself. In fact, there was a model a few years ago, Andre Page, who became quite famous for a while. And he's from Australia, but originally from Bosnia. So she had seen his interview, and Elena said, that's the first time she actually understood what being trans is. Obviously, her family was pretty shocked, not very accepting. Bosnia itself and Sarajevo is pretty conservative. I think all of the Balkans is quite conservative, maybe with the exception of Zagreb and Belgrade and Ljubljana. But Sarajevo is certainly very conservative. So Elena really had a hard time. She still does. Uh, I met her right as she was starting hormone therapy. And we met in a sort of LGBT center, and that's where I photographed her. She had come dressed as a man. She explained to me that she couldn't walk around dressed as a woman, um, And also because she didn't have a lot of money. So she explained to me that basically the way she got clothes was she used to steal something from her wife when that was possible. Then later on, she would just go through garbage cans and wherever she found there was female clothes, she would keep, which is the case with this outfit as well. So in the case of Elena, I think it's quite strong, to show this image because she's in her 60s, she's wearing a miniskirt, she's really proud to be wearing a miniskirt as well. So I think for Elena, again, clothes is something that not only affirmed her identity, but also gave her much of the freedom she was hungry for. Okay, let's go to the next person. Yeah, maybe Hannah. Hannah is from Montenegro, very young. Um, I mean, you guys are all young, so obviously, I'm not saying that young people have it easy. But in my experience, after speaking to all the people I had, young people are more adaptable and they have a better access to information. So Hannah very much illustrates this reality. Montenegro is quite a conservative society as well. So the styling she goes for, she explained to me, was she never really wanted to get much attention on her. So she went for a very natural look. She never dressed eccentrically. She didn't show much skin, but she went for sort of a clean girl look. And she said that in Montenegro, that helped her survive at the time because people wouldn't really, pay much attention. Of course, she's also lucky at the time. She's young and beautiful and very feminine herself before even starting to transition, which is not always the case. So she sort of used clothes not to be detected. Opposite from Natasha, who used clothes very much to get attention, but also use it as a cover. Uh, Hannah had the privilege of just being, clean cut girl, and that's how she survived her transition. By the way, I'm in touch with most of the people that I've worked with, and Natasha has finished her transition. She's living very happily in Belgrade. Elena is still in Sarajevo. She has also completed her transition. Uh, she still has a hard time going outside in Sarajevo, but she has gained some sort of a public. The public knows about her, so she doesn't get harassed anymore. Hannah, I think, is living in Belgrade maybe now. I'm not so sure. Okay, let's go to the next person. I think Yanko, maybe, yeah. So Yanko is from Bulgaria. And, I don't want to get too political, and also because you guys are concentrating on something else, but Bulgaria is and was at the time part of the EU. But Bulgaria also had some of the worst treatment of trans people I have encountered in this region. Not just public treatment, but also the government just ignores the trans question. So at the time, there was no access to any medical help. The government basically didn't recognize trans people. So Yanko is an example of somebody who, no matter the system, prevailed, and he actually uh, he got hormones illegally from Turkey. Uh, he had his top surgery done privately in a clinic. The doctor had never done that operation before, but he took the risk. Yanko lives not even in Sofia. He lives in a smaller industrial city. He lives with his girlfriend who has a child. So he explained to me that they very much, even before he got any hormones, uh, he was living like a man. So for him, it was absolutely crucial to always be dressed very masculinely. He works in a factory, a car factory, where most people did not know his gender. I always wondered how that worked because of his documents. And then he explained to me that basically he had what's the word? He had forged. He had fake documents. Um, I have not been in touch with him. I'm hoping the situation is better now. But he told me he's not even dreaming of having completing the transition. For him, it was enough to be able to live uh, in his community and to be accepted as a man. Um, and his outfit obviously represents that. He's dressed like any Balkan man would be. Do we have somebody else or no? I think maybe one more person.
Yes, there is one more. Yeah, there is one more example.
Oh yeah, Cristina Ferrari. So Cristina Ferrari is actually one of the first people that I met. She's well known. I mean, well known in the community. She's well in Serbia because she's in her 40s and she's one of the few people fighting for the rights of sex workers. Uh, she had completed her transition some 20 years ago in Thailand. Younger trans girls, everyone was always very much within the community impressed by the way she looked. Obviously, because she did the work she did, she had enough money. She could go to Thailand. She could afford all sorts of, surgeries. And what's great about Christina is that she really not only was very public about her sex work and also later on about being trans when she didn't have to be. She could have just passed as a woman. So she did a lot for the community. And why I chose her is um, she very much always let her sexuality be a part of her gender identity. Like she not only didn't hide the fact she was in sex work, but she very much flaunted her sexuality. And as you can tell, this is really how she would go. Maybe not out to a supermarket, but she always wore clothes that showed her breast, that really accentuated her femininity, which is risky, um, but was very much part of her identity. I think that's the five people that I chose to. Uh, if there's anyone else you guys would like to do it, I don't know if you have shared the PDF with them before or not.
No, not yet, but I will send it to everyone who
Yeah,
is interested to read all the stories and to go through the book.
yeah, that would be great. Go ahead and send it. And then if anyone has any questions, of course, I'll be happy to answer. Oh,
Yeah, maybe I would have an answer, a question. You will have the answers probably. Thank you very much for the presentation of your
well,
project. It's amazing, and I think it's a very interesting topic within this region of ours that stays very much, yeah, rigid within the who
yeah,
a female and a male is. I was thinking, just on the case of Yanko, um, how hard was it for them to be part of this book? Did they immediately agree, or did someone step out of it or something? Because it's a document that cannot be erased. It's exhibitions that cannot be erased. So they say it in this book.
you're right.
I'm a trans, and maybe it's a difficulty for them within their countries to, yeah,
So
express.
thank you very much for that question. Um, it's a really good question. And what I've come to understand since then, I'm finishing another project now that has nothing to do with the trans community. That actually it does have to do with the Balkans,
Mhm.
photographing in a similar way multi-ethnic couples. So people that are not supposed to get along, I find couples like that. And I thought after Trans-Balkan that this would be much easier. Unfortunately, it's much harder. It was easier to find 100 trans people in the Balkans than 100 couples. mixed couples. So all of this to illustrate that a lot of these people in Trans-Balkan, they're self-aware. And even though it's risky, they want recognition, they want visibility, even though, it can be very dangerous at times. They've explained to me, we already live a dangerous life every day. So obviously the people that are in the book are the ones that they accepted to come out publicly. Most of them had already come out publicly. But yeah, I think trans people are in need, and they want visibility. These couples that I'm working with now, they absolutely do not want visibility. They find their own happiness, a small life, and they live in a closed bubble. Trans people, I think there is a very great sense of this is what initially attracted me to working with trans people. I've never met, I don't like to generalize, but I've met so many incredibly strong and powerful people within the community, especially the young people. They just don't, maybe it's being young, but there isn't much fear. I think a lot of them have already lived horrible experiences and they want change, and they understand that in order to get change, they have to be a part of the change. It's a very small community. Even within the LGBT community, the trans community is, tiny. And they've learned that nobody's really willing to help them. They have to do it themselves. At the time I was doing this project, the trend seemed to be positive. Some of the Balkan countries started changing their laws. Now, unfortunately, we've gone back.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know,
Of course.
even in the States. So, what can you expect from the Balkans? So yeah, Janko, even though people at work didn't know, he accepted. The exhibition did visit Sofia, but I don't think it ever went anywhere else in Bulgaria. Of course, one person knowing that's not supposed to know can cause problems.
Exactly.
But these are risks that people were willing to take.
Mm.
And I was very grateful for that.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you very much for the question.
Hi, Alexander. I also have a question. Thank you for sharing your work. And I think actually having your collaborators choose how they wanted to represent themselves in these photos is the key point here that we should probably point out further. I was wondering if you what about the feedback from the general public, from the people who saw the exhibition, or maybe, and more importantly, the feedback from maybe family members or friends or anyone of these people, specifically Elena. Her story, I think, is really something. So I was wondering if, since you are in touch with most of them or all of them, did you get any info on how the book or the exhibition might have, I don't know, affected this in a positive way, or maybe moved their surroundings and their communities towards accepting them?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for the question. I'm very realistic. I even though at the time this was a huge thing for me and quite a big thing when the first show happened in Belgrade, there had never been a show dedicated to this topic, and all of the community came. It was a really big success. I was surprised even in the first show there was no bad press, and in Serbia, I'm sure it's probably similar in Croatia. There's a lot of yellow press, just very trashy press. Somehow we went under the radar. And then even when the exhibition got very popular, I still can't explain it, but there was no bad press. A few years later, when the government changed position on gay marriage, then obviously the trans topic came up as well, and the climate had changed. But at the time that I did this, I was actually quite surprised to get people were very accepting. I think also the way the project was conceived through these portraits and personal narratives, There is absolutely no discussion of, transition or medical aspect of transition. If people wanted to talk themselves in their quote about it, they could. But I was very respectful not to, not to make the trans question something exotic, but just to present these people as human beings, which they are, which we all are. And I really tried to gear the exhibition more towards, as I said, all the other aspects that make them who they are. The trans thing is just a fact, and I wanted to achieve this sort of mirror effect. We had large prints, so when you come to the exhibition, you would stand there. I don't know, if you don't feel any empathy, then it's really up to you. Then the problem is with you. In terms of Elena that you mentioned, Elena is a very specific case. As with most people in the Balkans, finances is, if you don't have money, you don't have freedom, unfortunately, in this age. So Elena still lives with her wife. They live in a very small flat, 50 square meters, with the son, who's 30 years old. So they've sort of made a corner of her living room. They put a big closet, and they've separated the room in two. And Elena basically lives, it's awful, behind the closet. So her family is still not accepting of her. She's done some TV interviews in Bosnia. She's gone public, which is amazing. But unfortunately, her wife still, they don't speak. Her wife and son don't speak to her. She's not able to get divorced because they can't, split up economically. And I think even her transition in Bosnia is not complete. And I don't mean the physical transition, but the paper transition. Because she's still married, she can't become a woman. She can't be recognized as a woman because Bosnia doesn't recognize gay marriage. If they were to accept that she's a woman and she's married to a woman, that means Bosnia would have to accept gay marriage. So Elena is a particularly hard scenario. I don't think the exhibition made a huge difference in her life. If anything, she came to the Belgrade exhibition as well, and she was very hungry to meet other trans people. So I think in this way, the exhibition was good for her. I also don't have any illusions. I think this exhibition and the book was maybe just a first small step in the right direction. I think these people have much, their lives are much more than just an exhibition. I certainly hope it didn't create any problems for anyone. As far as I know, it didn't. What was important for me, as you pointed out, is to have a good collaboration, to depict them, to show them the way they want to be shown. And also, a lot of them, couldn't come to the exhibition or chose not to come, or maybe they lived in smaller places where the exhibition never came to. So what I had done is, through a friend, I found this guy from Belgrade who lives in New York and is very active in the LGBT community. He actually bought 103 books, and then we managed to send to each person who was in the book a copy of the book, which I'm very happy to have been able to do. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else?
Okay, thank you, Aleksandar, for sharing such a powerful project.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we are going to take a short 10-minute break. I think this is a good time for everyone to step away from your screens, grab a coffee, and do a stretch. We will start again at 11:05.
Perfect. Ciao, guys. Wish you all
See
the
you
best.
then.
Bye.
Bye.